deportations to the walls within our minds. Return from fear to faith in walls, fences, borders, gates, and the sacred grounds they desecrate. When will we all learn to share this home? All land is holy and it can't be owned. When will we all learn to share this home? All land is holy and it can't be owned. When will we all learn to share this home? All land is holy and it can't be owned. With the walls, fences, borders, from the borders of our nation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Code with Pax Christi USA. Thank you for joining us. We have another video to show, and then we'll get our program started. So if you just bear with us for 1 second, we'll get the next video started.
They told me you were broken, bloody bodies bundled under blight and blunder, broken, severed, wings clipped at birth, and that you would never learn to fly again. They told us that your words sketched on sheets would breach the heavens, but would never reach our hearts. That families torn apart are only part of the process pertaining to the public good. How could false prophets pontify and bring attention to detentions for profits? Boxing brothers like commodified cattle and subjugate sisters into pools of toxicity. There is no poetry, metaphor, or simile that could ever verbalize what they've done with your divinity. And here we stand in solidarity and affinity with the affection you affect us with our hearts in our hands, with your courage in our throats, with your dreams on our tongues, and your stories in our lungs. I want to know, when did they steal our spirit, sold us lies of dollar signs that justify the commodification and commercialization of our community, preyed upon our unity so that you can never see the you in me? I need to know, when did they attempt to detain our humanity, hold our heartbeat hostage so that our blood would never run cold at the sight of such injustice? At the sight of forgotten fathers who may never see their sons rise because economic engines would pump lies before pride of family ties. How do you tell a daughter that her father will not be coming home for Christmas, has become fodder for a politician's hit list, and there are few who are willing to bear witness? How do we reclaim our right to life, to love, to see each other as people, redeem our self-esteem, and never again see another human being as illegal? To our family and friends held behind bars and barbed wire, we want you to know they will never detain your dignity. They can never sell your soul. They cannot deport your stories or devour what you teach. That God is love, and love is life, and life is in our speech. And if our words are life and love, then God is in our reach. Let us pray with hands and purpose and create the world we seek. Peace.
My name is Kathy O'Leary. I am the New Jersey Region Coordinator for Pax Christi. We represent the International Catholic Peace Movement in the United States. And I'd just like to give you a very brief overview of where we're at here in New Jersey, which is what precipitated this call. In 2021, New Jersey was able to pass a law that essentially would eliminate ICE detention. It did not allow anyone to enter into a new ICE contract or to renew an old ICE contract. Unfortunately, CoreCivic, which is the largest private prison company in the world, filed suit against New Jersey and struck down the law in part, which allowed them to continue operating the Elizabeth Detention Center. And shortly afterward, Geo Group, which is also a very large private prison company, petitioned the court for the same relief, and it was granted. And then late last year, we learned that the Biden administration was negotiating with Geo, or talking to Geo, about reopening actually Delaney Hall, which is a private for-profit halfway house that had operated for many years next to the jail and on what is known as Chemical Corridor. Within its rights, Newark, the city of Newark, attempted to visit the facility. They attempted to do inspections, health and safety inspections, and were denied. Interestingly, on May 1st, when the facility opened up, Tom Homan, the border czar, in a response to a question from the Gateway pundit, who queried, why didn't he just arrest the leaders of the sanctuary cities? To which Tom Homan responded, "Watch what's coming." Within just over a week, Mayor Baraka, the mayor of Newark, the largest city in New Jersey, was in handcuffs. Those handcuffs were placed on him by ICE agents who, interestingly, have no authority over U.S. citizens. Just a few days later, that following Monday, about 50 members of clergy engaged in civil disobedience and shut down the facility for a number of hours by blocking the gate with their bodies. Now, right after that, the facility was turned into a militarized zone. There were dozens of armed ICE agents with body armor, all kinds of military-style gear, zip ties, and urban combat-style automatic rifles. So this was very unnerving to see, being down there, but it was somewhat comforting knowing that these people were not in the neighborhoods roaming around, gathering up or rounding up our brothers and sisters. Which leads me to why Pax Christi is here. Pax Christi as the International Catholic Peace Movement. We have seen for many years in the pursuit of safety for many decades, we have given up our civil liberties, and we have increased our military presence overseas. But now it appears that we are bringing this military presence home to be used in our communities. And what we are seeing and what we are being promised is that National Guard troops and potentially private military contractors will be part of the equation. So we have gathered a number of folks here tonight to speak to you all who have various experience and information on the subject. So I hope you find it informative. I hope that I hope that you find some ways to get involved as well. So I'm going to turn it over now to Reverend Chloe Breyer. Reverend Breyer has served as the director of the Interfaith Center of New York since 2007. During the past decade and a half, the Interfaith Center of New York has developed a pioneering curriculum in civics training for grassroots religious leaders, built multi-faith advocacy coalitions preventing bias crimes, and promoted criminal justice and immigration reform. An Episcopal priest in the Diocese of New York, Reverend Breyer has served at Harlem churches for more than 2 decades, including as associate priest at St. Philip's Church since 2012. Reverend Breyer recently participated in a direct action with dozens of other faith leaders outside New Jersey's newest detention facility, Delaney Hall, where she and others risked arrest while blocking access to the facility. And Reverend Breyer is going to open us up with a prayer.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And thank you to Pax Christi, Make the Road New Jersey, so many organizations who've been working so hard on this initiative to end detention and private prisons in their state, and have been so gracious to invite us from across the way in New York City to come and join them. And that action that you were referring to was truly a really extraordinary one, in the sense that it really showed the power of nonviolent resistance, especially for people used to, carrying arms around and for might being right. So it was we really put it was an amazing experience, and a truly multi-faith one as well. I'm going to read a short reading from something called Letters and Papers from Prison by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Christian theologian who has recently been misappropriated by the Christian right, a pacifist, a person with who stood up against the Nazis by founding the Confessing Church over and against the church in Germany that went along with the Nazi regime, and also someone who really was a theologian who was himself, at the end of his life, imprisoned for his beliefs. I picked this reading because it also is reminiscent of, it spoke to me about thoughts that people currently in detention might be thinking at this time. And I heard today, for example, that Delaney might be reaching capacity. So this brings to mind people who are unjustly imprisoned. Wearily I come to the evening. Welcome our bed and oblivion. Now that my own is denied me, night, blot out what separates. Give me oblivion in charity, perform your kindly office. To you I trust myself. But night is wise and mighty, wiser than I and mightier than day. What no earthly power can do, what is denied to thoughts and senses, defiance and tears, night brings me in the bountiful bounty overflowing, unharmed by hostile time, pure, free, and whole. You are brought to me by dream, you, my past, my life. Please join me in prayer if it is your practice. O God, our Creator, when you speak, there is life and light. When you act, there is justice and love. Grant that your love may be present to us in this gathering tonight, so that what we do and what we say, we may show forth in our deeds in the coming weeks and years ahead. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Chloe, for those inspiring words. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Elia Piazza, who received their PhD from UC Berkeley. Their research and writing centers on queer readings of Jewish texts and culture. They are a rabbinical student at Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, and they are currently working with Never Again Action as the rabbinical intern. Never Again Action is a Jewish-led mobilization against the persecution, detention, and deportation of immigrants in the United States. And you may recall that Never Again Action's first public witness was outside the Elizabeth Detention Center in 2019 when 36 of its members were arrested blocking the gate of the Elizabeth Detention Center.
Hi, everyone. I'm grateful to be with you all tonight. My name is Elia. I'm calling in from Philadelphia. I'm the rabbinical intern at Never Again Action, which is a Jewish-led organization whose goal is to end deportation and detention, full stop. We're the only national organization primarily organizing allies to show up in support of our immigrant partners around immigration justice. So in the aftermath of the Nazi Holocaust, Never Again became a rallying cry. While some use the Jewish experience of hate, expulsion, and genocide to exceptionalize Jewish suffering as separate from other instances of human suffering, Never Again Action understands our history as a mandate for Jews to stand up against state violence everywhere. Never Again Action, as you just heard, started in 2019 as a group of Jews willing to sound the alarm that, yes, ICE detention centers are concentration camps, and we need to take action. Jewish tradition commands us to choose life, not death. It teaches us that every life is a whole world, regardless of gender, color, ability, legal status, or ethnicity. So for us, never again means never again for anyone. Being here with you to share a vision of Jewish safety based in solidarity feels especially important right now. While Never Again Action members invoke our historical trauma of anti-Jewish hate towards solidarity, others are abusing the idea of Jewish safety to justify the horrifying abductions of immigrant students speaking out for Palestine. As a Jewish organization, we call their bluff. Standing up against genocide and starvation is not anti-Semitic. It is our human right and responsibility. Likewise, in the aftermath of the shooting yesterday in DC, we can expect that many will use these events to and misuse our Jewish identity to sow further division in our communities and to undermine solidarity movements. This is not new. White supremacists and colonial powers have long capitalized on tragic moments to paint all Black and brown people as violent criminals. The criminalization of immigration is just one of the tools in their violent toolbox. We refuse to give in to fear-mongering. We know that our liberation is intertwined. But right now, the regime is also forcing together the oppression of immigrants and of the Palestinian people. We know the supremacist and dehumanizing campaigns against immigrants here in the US and against Palestinians in Palestine are two heads of the same beast. While the US continues to bankroll genocide in Gaza, Israeli technologies are currently being deployed for surveillance at the US-Mexico border. Israeli companies like Magal and Elbit have celebrated the increased border violence of Trump's rule, directly profiting from militaristic collaboration between the US and Israel. Indigenous communities on the border have let us know for a long time that surveillance of the US-Mexico border looks a whole lot like surveillance in Palestine. Both sites act as testing grounds, and what we're now witnessing is the violence that got tested on our borders moving all the way into our communities in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and now to Delaney Hall. The armed military robots that terrifyingly patrol our borders were created by the Israeli company Elbit to target Palestinians. When the US government spends hundreds of millions of dollars developing these technologies with bipartisan support, they're not doing it for our safety. Militarism does not keep Jews or anyone else safe. We demand a world where everyone has freedom of movement and freedom from state terrorism, surveillance, and imprisonment from Palestine to Turtle Island.
Thank you so much, Elia, for that very important context and background. And now for some more very important background, we're going to hear from Marcela Hernandez, who is the Organizing and Membership Director at Detention Watch Network, a national coalition of 100 organizations building power through collective advocacy, grassroots organizing, and strategic communications to abolish immigration detention in the United States. Detention Watch Network brings together advocates from diverse backgrounds to unify strategy, build partnerships, and strengthen the movement to end immigration detention via their Communities Not Cages campaign.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us today and for the work that everybody is doing to support our immigrant communities in this extra horrible moments. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the national landscape and what we're seeing in terms of the attacks against our immigrant communities. So as it was already mentioned, right, the Trump administration is moving full steam ahead to expand the immigration detention system. There are already over 49,000 people locked up in ICE detention, and we know one person in detention is too much. If Trump's multi-layer detention plan is realized, it would actually triple the immigration detention system's capacity to over 120,000 beds. We know that detention plays a crucial role in enabling Trump's mass deportation agenda. Detention puts people's lives in jeopardy. We have already seen 6 lives lost under this administration in immigrant detention. We know these detention centers are deadly. It also isolates people from their loved ones and their support networks, as we have seen it, right, with Palestinian student activists who were transferred from the Northeast to detention centers in the South. And that is a practice that we have seen consistently in years past to isolate folks. It also coerces people to sign their deportation orders and not fight their cases. And it facilitates the logistics to carry out deportations as well. We have also seen and even have done some research about how when there's a detention center open in a community, it actually increases enforcement. Because if they build it, they have to fill it. At DWM, we believe that no matter where somebody came from or how they arrived to the United States, their life is of value and they should be treated with dignity and respect. We believe that every person has the right to move and live freely in community and with their family without fear of being separated from their loved ones or displaced from their home. And we also believe that our collective well-being relies on our ability to work together as a community. Right now, Trump's detention and deportation agenda will cost taxpayers greatly while ignoring critical investments to improve the quality of life for all of us. And we're seeing it right now, right? Today, the House of Representatives passed the Trump and MAGA bill that is one step closer to increasing Trump's cruel mass detention and deportation agenda. This bill provides a shocking $150 billion for immigration enforcement. This includes $45 billion for immigration and customs enforcement, also known as ICE, to detain both adults and families for the next 4 years, while cutting very vital and critical programs for all community members in the United States and Americans, such as Medicaid, food assistance, clean energy programs, and so much more. I know many of you probably have been hearing, right, all these programs that are being cut and different organizations fighting for these programs. And instead of investing in the well-being of all communities, right, this administration and Congress is investing in this mass and detention and deportation agenda. So we are seeing this plan of expansion of immigration detention being carried out in various ways. I want to highlight 5 things that we're seeing. One of them is opening new ICE detention facilities, such as Delaney Hall. And Delaney Hall is not the only one. We're actually monitoring potential expansion in various states. The Washington Post reported that the Trump administration wants to open 4 new 10,000 bed detention facilities, as well as 14 smaller sites with capacity for 700 to 1,000 people. I'm based here in California, and we're actually monitoring potential expansion in 3 facilities here just in California. And there's other folks also fighting expansion, such as in Kansas as well. We are also seeing something called the proliferation of ICE detention into other government agencies, including reopening of Shutter Bureau of Prison facilities to be converted into immigration detention centers. And we're seeing this in places like Miami, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and potentially the use of other BOP facilities. We are also seeing the use of military bases being used, which we have seen in the past, such as Guantanamo Bay. We're also monitoring military base here in California, the Travis Air Force Military Base. We have also heard rumors of other bases, such as in Colorado State, being used. And we are also seeing a lot of executive orders, right, that extend detention and also target people for deportation. And as well as collaboration with other countries, such as El Salvador, to deport people there and imprison them. So we are seeing various ways this administration is carrying these attacks against our immigrant communities. And we know that this moment demands a national outcry. So this is, you all being here today is the first step to joining us to fight this agenda. We know that right now communities across the country are moving forward to fight and to limit these attacks, and that our communities have successfully fought to close detention facilities, to stop expansion, to free people from detention, to stop deportations. And we have to come together. There is something that everybody can do. And we also need to demand that our elected officials, like folks in New Jersey, also push back against these policies. So today, I do want to invite you to sign a petition demanding Congress does not allocate any more money to support Trump's detention and deportation agenda, and instead invest in the well-being of all of our communities. And I know the other speakers are gonna talk about other ways that you can engage in our fight for communities, not cages. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Marcela, for that very important information. Knowing that this is not just an issue that's in New Jersey, but across the country, and having that information, this is, I know, going to be critical as people consider getting involved. So next, we're going to hear from Katie Sastre, who is currently the executive director of First Friends of New York and of New Jersey and New York, which upholds the inherent dignity and humanity of immigrants who are impacted by the immigration enforcement system. First Friends provides compassion and hope through connections with volunteers dedicated to helping them survive detention, gain freedom, and rebuild their lives. Katie previously held positions with the International Center for Transnational Justice, the International Rescue Committee, Northern Manhattan Coalition for Immigrant Rights, and the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and good evening and maybe good afternoon to some folks. I don't really know, but hi. Thank you for having me and for inviting me to be part of this space. So what began at First Friends in 1997 as like a group of volunteers who wanted to provide visitation to people who were detained at the Elizabeth Detention Center here in New Jersey has really expanded over the last 28 years to provide some services, a lot of services that a lot of other orgs really just don't because they can't because of funding limitations, or that's just not what they do. And so what we do is really provide all of those extra supportive services that people really need when they're detained. That includes everything from volunteer-led services like visitation and pen pal programs to letter writing campaigns or pickups when someone's released from detention, and then material support for people, which is also vitally important. So commissary funding, phone funding, immigration bond funding. And we provide those services to people in the 5 regional detention centers that are in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania that tend to hold people from New York and New Jersey. And so over the years, the programs have really expanded, and of course now also includes accompaniment, which is what I'm going to talk a little bit more about. Our accompaniment program, which we started a few years ago, we really initially envisioned, and I'll go into what it is more broadly, but we envisioned as sort of like something that would only really need to happen at immigration court or at a NICE check-in. But we're seeing, I think, under this administration that there's a much broader need for it than we even originally thought. And so we're thinking about like what is accompaniment? Broadly speaking, it's just sort of like being with somebody in a, going with them to do something, right? And I think we all do it in so many ways already. Like if you've ever accompanied a grandparent or someone who maybe I had to do a lot of translations for my grandparents growing up at the doctor's offices. I feel like I've been doing it since I was a kid. Or like, taking somebody to family court or like a school appointment. And then, in terms of like court accompaniment specifically, it's just really a particular subset of that larger umbrella. It's really kind of walking along with somebody as they go through a particular legal journey. And it's not specific to immigration, although there's a long and rich history, especially, of accompanying new arrivals into immigration proceedings. But of course, this can happen in other settings and does, like family court settings, domestic violence setting, court settings, drug court settings. It's really needed in a lot of ways because if you've been in immigration court, it is an incredibly violent place. Not in a physical way, but in the ways in which people's humanity is just constantly dismissed um, by by judges, by DHS lawyers, by everybody. And I think there's like 2 really important reasons. And actually, one of the folks who created our accompaniment training likes to use this quote by an immigration judge, who says that immigration, basically the setting is described as death penalty cases decided in a traffic court setting. And that's really, really accurate for the way that people's whole lives are treated. Somebody's entire life is being decided, and they treat it as though it's like not really a big deal and kind of like, let's get it out of the way. And it's like a human being, right? So I think it's incredibly important for folks to be present, to hold our system to account, to at least bear witness, right? I think it's also incredibly important because most people in immigration court are unrepresented, right? You are not guaranteed a access to a lawyer. You are guaranteed that you can call a lawyer if you have one, right? But you are not guaranteed meaningful access to a lawyer. And so while in New Jersey we have some state funding, it's not nearly enough to meet the need. And so but the majority of people are going into immigration court or an ICE check-in or whatever it might be without a lawyer, then they are even in a much more vulnerable position. And it's even more important that folks are just can be there. Now more than ever, that looks like everything from just being a ride there and back, right? The person goes in and out and hopefully everything's great, but it can look at on the worst end of the spectrum, it can look like you letting staff know once you've done an accompaniment that a person has been detained so that we can follow through with their emergency contact, right? Like it's important for us to be there for ways that weren't quite as important or as prevalent before. People are being detained at their ICE check-ins. People are more likely to be detained now, even after immigration court hearings, as we're hearing about more and more. And so part of what we do is also do some of the prep work with people beforehand of like, do you have your documents in order? Do we have an emergency contact for you if you have children? Are there plans? And somebody being with people to find out that what has happened to them and let others know is incredibly important right now. In the past, we've noticed that it's made a difference to have the community in the room supporting you. I will be very, very honest, it's getting harder and harder to get into the courtrooms. We are supposed to have public courts. We're supposed to have a lot of things that we don't have these days. But even knowing which judges let folks in and which don't is an important piece of information for us to have as a community, right? Even understanding what is happening while you're waiting in the waiting room, even just waiting for the person to come back to you, make sure that they get in the Uber home or whatever it might be. Even that is a super important role, even if we're not getting into the courtrooms. Although in the past, we have seen that it does make a difference if there's a big community presence there supporting you. And then in terms of just like being there, the role of the volunteer is really just providing emotional support, being an ally, being a shield, being a calming presence, not a translator or anything like that, but essentially someone to take notes and ensure that the person that you're accompanying understands what the next steps are, perhaps what documentation they have to like follow up with. It's really, really traumatic to be in these spaces. And if ever you've been in a traumatic situation, probably not thinking super clearly, you're probably not like taking super clear notes. And so like we're that backstop, right? Like we're there saying this is the next court date. You have to fill out this application. The judge said to do X, Y, and Z. It's really just no one should have to do that stuff by themselves. And so we're there to just make sure we've got the right notes. As I mentioned earlier, because I do think I'm probably running up on time, though most of our accompaniments are ICE check-ins and immigration court hearings, we've kind of like expanded what we're doing these days. There are lots of people who are concerned about showing up to a detention center. So we've started doing an accompaniment to visitations at detention centers where perhaps a family member either doesn't have a ride or is like uncomfortable going into a facility that's crawling with ICE agents. And so having a person who can pick them up, bring the family, wait with them, go in with them if possible, whatever is needed is something that we've been doing. Additionally, there are children perhaps going through proceedings that have to go to family court, and often their guardian is perhaps also undocumented, fearful of going near a court. I would be too, obviously. And so we'll accompany the whole family. And so that child can still proceed with their immigration relief or their immigration cases. So there's lots of different opportunities for doing accompaniment. And I'm going to put a bunch of links in the chat about how you can get in touch with us, our immigration bond referral forms, how to get on our email list, all that stuff, because there's plenty of ways to get involved. And thank you to everyone. Appreciate it.
And thank you so much, Katie, for that very, very detailed description of what you do and the importance of what you do. And as Guillermo posted in the chat, it's becoming even more important because that is actually where people are being picked up right now, is when they go to their ICE check-ins and when they go to immigration court. So, apparently, if they do have somebody with them, they're we believe they're less likely to be detained. So. It becomes even more important that folks with privilege step up right now. So next we'll hear from Lee Adorno. Lee was born in Puebla, Mexico, and migrated to the United States when he was 7 years old. Lee is currently a volunteer organizer at Movimiento Cosecha, a movement fighting for permanent protection, dignity, and respect for all undocumented immigrants in the United States. Movimiento Cosecha is a decentralized immigrant rights group that has autonomous chapters across the United States. Its name comes from the word harvest in Spanish, and their mission is to use the power of non-cooperation to leverage the power of immigrant labor and shift public opinion.
Oh, Kathy, thank you for that introduction. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. I'm just here to also just share like what we've been seeing on the ground from when they started operating Delaney Hall unlawfully on May 1st all the way to what we are going through now. So I also wanted to speak a little bit about what happened on the 9th when the three congressmen showed up and asked to go and oversee what is going on in Delaney Hall, because up to that point there hasn't been much information coming out of that place. For a time, like you couldn't really find that like as an operational site online, which is a big problem, right? Especially if they're having people inside. Like people should know how to be able to contact them, be able to go inside to the visitations. But obviously, as maybe some of you already know, up to this point, they don't have the valid permits of occupancy to be able to be operating that facility. Also, they haven't let in the health inspectors, the fire department to be able to do a thorough inspection of the place and make sure that everything is in accordance and that it's a safe place for people to be in. Though we already know that it isn't, given that it's located in what locals call the toxic corridor of Newark. Um, Already through some of our work that we're doing on the ground, we're hearing complaints about that, and I could speak to that a little bit more as I move on in this conversation. But going back to what happened on the 9th, it's very important because we are seeing that the Delaney Hall, which is not supposed to be open right now and which is not respecting our laws, is actually doing things that are bringing a negative effect to the local community and to the immigrant community in general here in New Jersey. That day when three congressmen came in, they were allowed to go into like the first room where they like usually like make you wait. It's kind of like the waiting room. They make you wait and they allow you to go inside the actual facility. So shortly after that happened, we were outside. We were exercising our First Amendment rights to protest the place, especially with everything that they're neglecting on doing. And then shortly after, we were joined by Ras Baraka, who's the mayor of the city of Newark. And he had come earlier in the week to also demand to be let in because, again, they haven't been following the municipal process to be able to operate a facility like that. So he came in, asked to go inside. He was told no. Then at one point they say, okay, they bring him in past the first gate. He's there for a bit. Then later he's asked to go outside. He goes outside. Shortly after, like all these things happen kind of quickly. So then after, like Rob Menendez comes out and says, "Hey, they're talking about coming to get you." And literally, as he's saying that, as that is happening, they open the gate and ICE agents come out. They surround the mayor and everybody who's around him. At this point, there was a whole bunch of like shoving, pushing. Obviously now we know that they're charging Representative Congresswoman MacGyver with charges, which is crazy because when you look at the tapes, right, you're seeing that like it's them coming out like in a pack, is them circling us, and it's them exerting state violence against us, who are there because we are concerned, because we are people who pay taxes here, right? Who are locals and who do not want a detention center in our backyard, especially not one that doesn't respect our rules. And the state of New Jersey has gone above and beyond to say that we don't want new contracts here in the state, that we don't want these detention centers operating. And somehow they've been able to team up with the federal government to find a way to bypass those laws. So obviously it's a big red flag for us here in the state of New Jersey. Shortly after, the mayor was arrested, there was a call for people to mobilize outside the ICE field offices. There's some footage that you can find in our social media, but basically a whole bunch of people came out from different groups. There was like you would just walk around and you would see people from that in New Jersey. Like it was definitely a moment where like the community like definitely came out, and you could see that there was strength in that community. The following day, when the religious leaders came out and they were also putting their bodies on the line to block the facility from operating normally, right? From having vans come in. That day was, I think, for me, a success because we were able to show that, you know, religious leaders, no matter what faith, are actually on the side of the people. And in every faith, you know, we are asked to protect each other, to care for each other, and that is not what's going on at Delaney Hall. It has been something that has put a local residents in danger, and we do not want it here. I also wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the work that we are holding on the ground as Movimiento Cosecha. The person previous to me, Katie, was talking to you a little bit about accompaniment and the importance behind accompaniment. On our end, that we've been able to support people who have had to go into the detention centers during these times, right? That were scared and that were like, hey, can somebody come with me? Or to help them navigate, like how to add money, how to be able to have like their loved one be able to buy cup noodles inside, for example. It's very important, and it's a way actually that anybody in New Jersey can volunteer to step up, right, to be part of this fight. We're always welcoming new volunteers. We can like have them trained at First Friends. But just yeah, that's a way for like the local community to get involved. Another way that we're also getting the average person involved is through our rapid response networks up here in North Jersey. The idea here is to be able to deliver people a Know Your Rights card, so that they can know a little bit about what happens if they see ICE in their community, like if they're outside walking in the street, what happens or what they can do so that the ICE doesn't come inside their house, right, without a warrant. But most importantly is that in there, we also have a toolkit that I can share on the chat after I'm done speaking, where we have compiled different tools through our working with families who have a person detained in Elizabeth Detention Center and Delaney Hall. We've been able to identify some of the things that people often ask. And so we put them things together in a toolkit online. Among them is how to find your case. The other thing that you can find is how to locate somebody who has been detained by ICE. And then also we have a petition that we're sharing with people. We want this to be like owned by the community here in New Jersey. We want to have people go outside and talk to their neighbors about, like, you know, if they see ICE, who to call, and in general, like, show support for each other, because if we don't stop them, they're just gonna not respect any of the laws that we pass. And we don't want that, right? We want to be able to fight back while we still have a chance. And yeah, I just want to encourage everybody to tap in. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lee, for sharing your experience. I mean, I wasn't there that afternoon. I was there in the morning when they took Baraka. But just watching the videos were just, it was just so frightening. Seeing the ICE agents, one of them, one had her hand on her sidearm, and people were yelling, you know, get your hand off your gun. And there was another man, another ICE agent on the other side of the crowd, who I don't think people noticed at the time, but he actually had a semi-automatic rifle. He had both his hands on. He was right behind Representative McIver. So, you know, when they're talking about her and what she might have done, it was just the threat of violence from the state was just so overwhelming that it's so dystopian that the legislators are being charged right now. And I just want to give a real quick shout out to the chat. We have such an active and dynamic chat going on. People are sharing resources back and forth. That's exactly what we want. So please keep going. Next we have as a speaker Asma El Houni, who is currently an organizer with Resistencia and Acción in New Jersey. Prior to relocating to New Jersey, she served with the as the movement politics director for Rights and Democracy in New Hampshire. Asma's work is rooted in organizing around issues of immigrant rights, racial justice, economic justice, educational justice, Palestinian liberation, and fighting xenophobia, Islamophobia, and state-sanctioned violence. A proud Muslim and African Arab immigrant born in Libya, Asma lifts up anti-colonial spiritual practices that require radical love and collaboration to get to collective liberation.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you, Lee and Katie and all the speakers before me. I'm going to ask if we can put up my PowerPoint, if that's okay. I'm personally a visual learner, so I assume there'll be others just like me who better learn actual through visual aids. So if we can get that up, that would be great. And while we're doing that, I'll just really fast introduce Resistencia. I want to start off by saying I'm honored to be here. And also, as we are lifting up the representatives that got arrested, it's just a reminder that everyday people also deserve to be protected and to feel safe. The next day, there were two people that were arrested as well, and they're organizers, right? And I do think that it was also targeted because they were brown. And I was one of them, and the other is another organizer with Resistencia. So just wanting to lift up how the system is intentionally targeting people, particularly brown, black people. And yeah, just making sure we want to keep everyone safe. So I'm honored to be in the presence of faith leaders. And I do think that faith leaders are the perfect people to do rapid response. I'm supposed to speak on rapid response. The Resistencia does have a strong rapid response team, and our member base is majority immigrants, but our rapid responders are mostly allies. But we also organize for workers' rights. We support families of those who are detained, but also we also support immigrants through other means as well, including English language courses. We also offer Know Your Rights. And we've been doing rapid response since December of last year, I believe. And so every week, Resistencia, we get calls where in our rapid response line where people are, yeah, right before that slide. I'm still on the slide before that one. Where people are calling to say that they see ICE in the neighborhood, or there's a family in crisis, or a family member has been picked up. The one most recently just happened last Tuesday. We got a call. ICE entered into an apartment complex and detained two people from two different apartments. When people do call our hotline early enough, we're able to arrive on the scene. We're usually able to make sure that no immigrants are detained. And that has been our experience, that actually when we do arrive, when they are present, they don't pick up the immigrants. So what we do know is that rapid response does work. So next slide, if we can go to the slide where it says freedom is never, if we can go back, sorry. Yeah, the one on freedom is never given. Oh, one more back.
One more back.
Back, actually, sorry. Yeah, there we go, that one. Just wanting to really fast go over an important quote to really ground us. And the Reverend Martin Luther King said, freedom is never given voluntarily by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. And I want us to sit with that for a moment and think about that. This is not just history, it's our reality today. And the systems we live in are maintained by consent. Sometimes it's silent consent, and sometimes it's active. And wanting us to really remember we actually do have power. And when we do organize, when we do show up, and when we do resist, those systems can crumble. Next slide. Okay, so usually ICE raids are designed to catch people off guard, and we know the most important thing we can do is to make sure that people know their rights, but that's not always enough. And that's why communities since the beginning of time have created rapid response teams, whether they call them rapid response teams or, sometimes they go by other names and sometimes they don't even go by names. It's just the community, right? Sometimes it's Migrant Watch, sometimes it's even Cop Watch. All these teams are meant to do the same thing. So rapid response is a grassroots plan. It's led by the community, for the community, to protect our families, our neighbors, when they are targeted by immigration customs enforcement or other forms of state violence, right? It's not just a hotline, though we have a hotline, a 24/7 hotline. It's not just about watching ICE, though that's definitely what we do. It's a living network of people ready to act when harm comes knocking on people's doors. So our rapid response goes beyond just a particular time period, like a raid. We also do family support afterwards. Just last week, one of our families we supported, in fact, one of our rapid responders was on the phone when ICE hit her car and put a gun to her head and told her to get on the floor, and then they detained her husband. There was some criminal charges against her husband, which the court did find that was untrue, dismissed all the charges, by the way, and then ICE still refuses to let him go, right? And so last week she was crying to us and telling us basically that her son can't eat, he needs a therapist, and so we're supporting her now. So rapid response is not just when ICE in the moment, right? Next slide here. So just wanting to share a reminder that dictators only rule with our permission. So tyrants rise when people are isolated. We're stronger together. There is power in numbers. And systems of control depend on our consent, whether active or passive, as we said earlier. And history shows when people withdraw their consent, regimes or behaviors can change and stop. We've seen that happened in apartheid South Africa. We are witnessing that in the resistance of Palestinians right now, despite their mass murder, they're being mass murdered. We see that, right? It's also important to remind people this isn't just about one party system, right? Or one party problem. Obama deported more people than any other president before him. Biden expanded ICE surveillance and approved the weapons for Israel's war on Gaza. The Democrats have voted to increase border funding, right? And back legislation that silences Palestinian solidarity. So we just really want to remember it's really a system. And so it doesn't matter who's in office, it's really the people that have to be in power. Next slide. Really wanting to share how billionaires have an invested interest to divide people. And so this is how it works. White supremacy is a tool that is used. They start by othering certain groups, and it's an old strategy. For example, from the very beginning, immigration laws were designed to control whoever can enter, right? Who could stay and who could be exploited. So the goal was never safety and fairness. It was always profit and power. We have the Chinese Exclusion Act, which banned Chinese laborers, while the US businesses still use labor to build their railroads that were Chinese immigrants, right? Or look at how today the Latinx community, the Black community, right? The other immigrant communities are over policed, they're over surveillance, and they're over detained, right? The system criminalizes Blackness, poverty, migration. And so it's really to serve the billionaires who own detention centers, surveillance companies, and exploit migrant labor, right? And white supremacy keeps the working class divided. It tells the middle class that everything is fine because they give them a little more. But in fact, we believe that even the middle class, there is no real middle class. Everyone is essentially struggling, but they want you to believe you're doing just a little better to keep quiet. And the reason why you're not doing even better is because of those people over there. Next slide. All right. I just wanted to really fast share why is Palestine why is it so important and why is it related to this issue here? Usually I would ask and would like for you to answer, but I know I'm running on time, so I'm just gonna tell you really fast. The reason why Palestine is so important, yes, it's because our tax money is going directly to fund this genocide, yes, but there's something else going on with Palestine that is really, really important for us to know. And why is it that billionaires are doing everything they can to protect Israel? And that's because Israel represents empire and the wealthy world powers. It is how the empire is willing to go as far as it can to get away with whatever it can, whether it's explicit rape, whether it's killing people, harming whole populations, demolishing whole communities to stay in power, to be able to continue their thievery, to be able to exploit people, right? So this is basically what we're seeing is a world order play out before our very eyes. And if Israel loses, then it's sending a clear message to all empires, all world powers, that exploiting others can no longer happen, right? Just the way they'd wish it can, right? So it's really super important. And what we know locally is the implications are actually reaching us here. We're seeing the crackdown on solidarity that threatens empire, not just abroad, but here at home. The push for IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is basically falsely equates the criticism of Israel with hate speech towards Jews, essentially weaponizing anti-Semitism against Palestinian advocates, which includes many Jews, as you saw with someone on the call today, our ally there and comrade. They're silencing student organizers. They've arrested a dear friend of mine, Muhsin Mehdawi, and they're criminalizing protests and they're moving our First Amendment rights, our free speech, right? And they're using that through Palestine. They're expanding immigration detention, going after visa holders, going after green card holders. They're going to expand it to citizens. And that's why we always remind people when they go after one group, and that's why we needed to stand up for our undocumented community members. If they go after one group, they're going to come after all of us. And that's so very important. Next slide. So what we are seeing here is they are coming, Immigration Customs Enforcement, sometimes they come masked, right? Obviously, they're embarrassed of what they're doing. They come in plain clothes instead of like uniforms. We've seen that. And they're making our community members disappear, right? They also lying. They're pretending that they're police sometimes. They use intimidation and they rely on people not knowing their rights to give them access to spaces they should not be allowed in without a judicial warrant, right? So this is clearly state violence. It's not just against immigrants, but it's a part of a larger system that protects the powerful while criminalizing all the vulnerable, right? So we really do need to connect the dots. The billionaires fund these policies that weaponize white supremacy through tools like ICE, through CBP, through bans. And these tools divide us by race, religion, status, so that it makes it easier to control us, right? And we could look at Palestine, at that history. When you see militarized raids here, they echo the global systems of occupation, and control in other places. Next slide. This is just next slide. Next slide. We did that one. Yeah, there we go. So basically, individual power versus group power. This is all to say, being alone, we are powerless. But when we act together, we can protect our communities. And rapid response is one way we could build that power. And it does work. Next slide. This is next slide. And you're doing great. Thank you so much. This is an example of in New Jersey how several rapid response teams, Resistencia, along with Cosecha, along with other groups, came together for this particular instance where immigrants were going to be detained. And what you are seeing here is literally a collaboration with different groups coming together and protecting immigrants, and they were not able to detain this person. So again, what rapid response does work when we show up, immigrants don't get detained. And I can say that confidently with this is what we've seen. But when police are involved or when FBI is involved, it's a totally different story. So I'm just gonna share that. So if you're going out and you're doing rapid response and you see police or FBI, there most likely is something else going on. But we do still want to be there because the fact of the matter is they are detaining other people around them. We want to capture what's happening. Oftentimes, they're detaining people and their charges get dropped. It was just like false accusations or whatever. They get dropped, as the example showed that earlier that we talked about, and then they're detained, right? And they, get deported. So we do want to be there, but just keeping in mind that if police are present with Immigration Customs Enforcement or FBI, they're going to at least charge them with something, most likely. Next slide. So for us, Resistencia, we have trained thus far. We've trained more than 58, but we currently have 58 trained rapid responders, all who are trained, who know what to do and how to behave when they go out, when we get a call. We also have a 24-hour hotline where operators are bilingual and we make sure they give Know Your Rights on the spot when people are calling. And then we also have patrollers, and I don't like the word patrollers because we're not police, but what we do is community build. We're out there, we're giving our number, we're asking people what their needs are, we're helping them in ways that we can, but we do this every single day. And all of our, I would say most of our people who are with us are volunteers. So this is volunteer work. And we're doing everything we can to get resources to make us even more impactful. So this work never ends, and we're dedicated to making sure we do that and protecting all our community members. We serve Mercer County in New Jersey, and because New Jersey is big, we have other organizations who are holding rapid response. You heard from Lee earlier, who is with Cosecha, and so they hold a particular area in New Jersey. We also have New Labor and Pueblo Unido, who also hold other areas. So just shout out to our other immigrant rights orgs holding down rapid response. And again, just wanting to remind, this is an ideal role for allies, in particular faith leaders. It's very different me going out and telling an ICE agent what they're doing than you all, right? So just really encouraging people to get plugged into their own rapid response. And the last slide, if you can go to the one before, next slide. Thanks. Reminding people the system is global, and so is our resistance. And so let's fight like we believe we can win, because we can. So the idea again is the system of control rely on our consent, and no one will save us but us. It's okay to push politicians to use laws to protect us, but at the end of the day, we protect each other. So please get involved in rapid response in your area. The bar is not too high. It's really, the way we do it is, if you have time and you get a call that says to come out, if you can come out, you come out. And that's why we need as many people as possible to get involved, so that those who can't come out, other people can step in. And I think this is definitely, when we're talking about faith leaders who are the backbone of our community in terms of the moral voice, to get involved. And then the last slide, we don't want to leave without leaving you on how to connect with us on Instagram, but also online. And you can also email us if you have any questions, but also if you want to talk more about what rapid response looks like, and if you want to get training, we're also open to help support, get your groups trained as well. And I'll pass it back. Thank you so much. I'll pass it back to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Asma, and all of our speakers. This has been a very well-rounded, very rich discussion, and we still do have some time where we can open it up to questions.
What about Terry?
Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. Is Terry here?
Yes.
Hey, Terry.
Hi there. Greetings. Thank you, Kathy. This is a wonderful, wonderful organizing session you've pulled together. And I see there's a couple hundred people on the call. So congratulations and thank you immensely.
Actually,
Kathy, you want to go ahead and introduce her?
Yes. Yes, Terry. So I wanted to pull Terry in. Terry Seuss is, I don't know, Terry, how long have I known you? Like probably 15 years or something?
Yeah, over the years.
So
luckily we've crossed paths.
Yes, quite a bit. So generally over immigration detention issues, Terry's was a longtime resident of Newark. And she called me up a few weeks ago and said, we're getting this detention center, and what can I do? And Terry went down by herself with a sign and some little cards that she made up herself, and started vigiling outside Delaney Hall. And it took me a few days before I could get there, and before we could bring more people. But that's actually turned into what we call Eyes on ICE. It's hashtag Eyes on ICE. And Terry, I'll let you describe a little bit about what your motivation was and what you did.
Yeah, I think as Kathy described, we've known each other a long time, fighting to close detention centers in Essex County and throughout the various counties of New Jersey. And I participated in that whenever I could, and I would go to hearings and I would speak. And there is in our backyard the Elizabeth Detention Center, and it's been there 30 years, and it bothers the heck out of me. And I visited people there in the 90s. So when I heard that Delaney Hall was going to be open, interestingly, I had just seen the movie. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It's called I'm Still Here, and it's a Brazilian movie. And it's about a woman who, during a dictatorship, is imprisoned, and all of life goes on around her. And I felt like we are really in that kind of milieu right now. And these that they are gearing up to have this on a massive scale. And so when I heard Delaney Hall was going to be open, I thought we had until July or August. And I wanted to go down there a little early and hand out a call to conscience flyer to the workers and the prospective workers as they were going into the facility, and to people who were working there to remodel the facility. My ideal at some other vigils that I had been at earlier was to actually get labor to throw up a picket line and stop the workers who were building this facility from entering. And several people said that's impossible and that won't work and they will cross. So then I thought about it more. I thought about it for a week and I kept thinking, what can we do? What can we do? And then I thought, of course, a prayer vigil. And Kathy has a history of that. So I called Kathy and I thought, well, she can't do it right away. Other people are busy. I'm just going to go down there and sit and hand out this little card and talk to people. And so I did that for about a week, and I would go down at 6 o'clock in the morning and stay till 8:30. And it was very valuable because you start to learn the pulse and the pace of that place. And that was before anyone was in there. It so happened that my last day of kind of a solo vigil, I was leaving and I was going to hand the card to somebody, and I thought it was a worker, but no, he said, my wife is in there. And so that was the defining moment when I went up to Roz's press conference later, that we realized that there were indeed people in Delaney Hall as of May 2nd. There may have been even people in there May 1st. They said that they were going to open May 1st. I heard about that April 28th. So I started April 29th, 30th, May 1, May 2. And Kathy joined me on May 2nd. And then Roz's press conference, which was remarkable and wonderful. And I think I'm a kind of person who, wherever we can use elected officials and elected officials will work with us, that's commendable and that's what we want. And I have a little bumper sticker that says, if people will lead, the leaders will follow. And actually, the sign of a healthy democracy is when the leaders are doing what is good and peaceful and enriching for their citizens. So that takes a lot of pressure from people, and we're all a part of that. So we all have agency and power, and I think we can use that. And then beautifully, the depth of immigrant organizing in New Jersey it came forth. And the second week, all the organizations came out, and they were out there for a week from 7 to 8:30 a.m. There were 70 people out there every day, right after the center had opened. So this is really a movement, and it's not going to really have effect and change until it is very, very deep and very extensive. What I see as an image is a wave. Some of us who worked on the Vietnam War saw that. It started with little people here and there working and then doing teach-ins and then reaching out and then people finding their consciences. And so I think that's what we need here. We need it across the entire country. What this bill that passed has $45 billion for building prisons over the next 2 years. And then 132 billion for ICE expansion. And if this isn't a massive militarization of our country, I don't know what is. And so I'm delighted people are here, and hopefully they might take on going to their own immigration detention centers. We have, I don't know how many across the country, and they all need people watching them. So this eyes on ice is a very powerful motif and an idea that Kathy found from other people doing it, even in the country. And it's something that's very sustainable because what we found is after our initial work down there, this week, 5 different groups are each taking a day. So we can have a sustainable eyes on ice and watch that place. It also gives us contact with all the visitors who are trying to get in and going to see their loved ones so that we can provide them resources of the wonderful people you've been hearing from. We can also provide them support through First Friends and and just pass that on so that they're not alone. So there's kind of a dual purpose. We're watching ICE, which I think is very important. They don't like it at all. I mean, last week they were out there, they had a tank in the driveway. They had people with automatic weapons. Kathy sent me these photos. I wasn't there at the time. I was at an art class, and I stopped everything and called the senators and said, "You can't do this. You need to call out these people and get these guns put away because there is no need for that." Even if there's ever, it's just ludicrous. So the next day, they moved the tank behind the gate, and the armed men were behind the gate. And by the time I got there on Friday, the automatic weapons were gone, and the tank was gone. So these are the kind of things they're going to pull, and it's disgusting. And we need to see it, and we need to call it out, and we need to stop it. And we can stop it. Obviously, we have had agency. We have spoken up on behalf of visitors' rights on a Mother's Day rally that we had. People from all over New Jersey brought bouquets of flowers and for the mothers inside. And then they were telling the visitors they couldn't go in because the protesters had to move across the street. So the protesters moved across the street, the vigilers, and then I went up because I was kind of the coordinator of the day with Reverend Chloe and others. I went up there and asked, what's going on? These people have come from far away, and they did that because of the hours posted online. And the person said, "Oh, well, it's all because of what Baraka did on Friday." And that was another lie and another excuse that had nothing to do with the visitors. And little by little, between a call to Andy Kim and between me directing the guard to call his warden, suddenly the people were lined up and were allowed to go in. So it's just all important. I formed a little group on my flyer, Call to Conscience flyer, that is called Americans for Immigrants. And it seems like Americans who are born here need to be stepping out and participating in this and following the lead from, the organizers and the young people that we see here today. Powerful, powerful observations, organizing, and analytical approaches. So anyway, let's just hope we can all work together. I would advise anyone who is near a detention center to go ahead and take a look, and even in a small way, hold a sign and protest, and other people in the community will join you because these are wrong. These are not part of America, and it needs to be stopped. And I think we can do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And I just want to point out, it was Terry by herself who said we need to do this. And I wouldn't advise anybody else go out there all by their own, all on their own. At least bring one other person with you. But one person did start this, and we are now, this is our 4th week that we're finishing up. And we're still going. So and I actually took the hashtag from another organization in Baltimore who's been doing this. They do it once a week. But this is something I think ICE doesn't like us doing it. There's a reason why they don't like us doing it. Finding out how they operate is really important to us making some headway and helping to defeat some of these detention centers. So, um,
Kathy,
mhm.
Kathy, one other thing. There will be a real need for teach-ins among, workers of all sorts and older people and people in civic organizations and all these things. It needs to have a real depth to it. And so we need to teach about what's going on.
And I think that's the plan going forward too. And I see we do have a few more minutes left. I see Georgianne, you have your hand raised, so if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
It's not a question. I want to say what a lot of people won't say, which is that old white folks can be very useful
Yes.
in this fight. We're a little bit safer, not entirely safe, nothing safe anymore, but we are a little safer. We're retired, we're not working every day, and so we can help with rapid response. You get the call, it's 20 minutes from your house, you just hop in the car and you go. It's not that hard. And just by your being there, you are being helpful. Being well trained and having nerve is helpful, but even just being there is good. So I do want to just kind of reiterate that there are lots of things we can do.
Yeah, and I just wanted one of the press hits that we got was a reporter who came and saw that it was a bunch of gray-haired women of a certain age standing next to these men in all kinds of military gear, and he said, "Who are they guarding?" And it was he called them the nice old ladies. But shortly after that happened, that's when they went. They took all the military gear away. So I think we shamed them. There's a question in the chat about signs, and I believe it's signs within your houses of worship. It's Paula Johnston asked, "Do we want signs that say more than private, explicitly asserting rights, solidarity, and educating our congregations?" So I don't know if Asma or Lee or Katie, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can jump in here. So there's more your congregation can do. So yes, private is good. The signs. If you want to go beyond that, uh, you can. So there is something called sanctuary, and churches have been doing it. It's not something new. It's been going on for years now. And so, if you're willing to do that, I would reach out to organizations and just let them know, hey, we're willing to offer this to people who need to stay safe because Immigration Customs Enforcement knows where they live, etc. And people in the congregation, either their homes or in the congregation themselves, in Vermont, where I used to live, they actually had a space within their own church that they housed a family in. So that's something else that you might want to talk to your church about. If is that something you want to engage in? Just reminding people that not all laws are ethical, and you know that you guys broke some laws in the past that give us some of the amazing laws that we are benefiting from today. So I say thank you, and it's a moment to really step up and really be there for each other. And so I encourage everyone to think about that. So, in terms of ICE agents, yes, ICE can go, Immigration Customs Enforcement can go anywhere where the public can go. So, if I'm allowed to walk into the lobby of a store, so can Immigration Customs Enforcement. If I'm not allowed to go into a room because it says private, Immigration Customs Enforcement can't as well without a judicial warrant. So if you can just keep that in mind, any private space they cannot enter. And so, yes, if you want to be extra, what we do is we ask stores to actually put up a sign on the store that says, we know our rights. And if you're Immigration Customs Enforcement, we will ask you for a judicial warrant just so that they don't waste their time. They know, oh, these people already have gotten training. Let's not. If we go into this store and ask them anything, they've already done their homework. So, yeah, absolutely. You can go a little bit beyond just private. You can put signs right on your churches, your places of worship. You could put signs on your stores, right? And then the main thing is like know your rights. As long as people know your rights, that's how we're gonna stay safe. Because realistically, yes, we have gone out and we're able to face ICE, but most of our calls we get there a little too late because, by the time we get there, people are already detained and they don't know, do not open your door. Your home is a private space. To ask them to slide whatever warrants they have under the door, and most likely they're not going to have a warrant because remember, immigration is not the part of the judicial. So the judicial, if it's related to a crime, you'd have an actual judicial warrant. Most of these people, the ICE agents have something else called an administrative warrant, which is not a judicial warrant. So you want to look for the signature. That's the easiest way. If it's signed by a judge, then you know it's a judicial warrant.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we should definitely follow up with a future training because that's like a whole other webinar, and that we would love to do that with everybody. I think I want to. There's one more question in the chat. It says, "What would y'all say to white people who are afraid of retaliation from local law enforcement and people in their communities and rural areas, etc.?"
What you say?
I'm just I'm brown and I'm like, if I am afraid and I do it anyway, please, you have it in you. They're not gonna do to you what they do to us. They're not. We get treated differently. We get tackled to the floor. We get handled much, and we still do it because we know it's right. So when you won't get as bad of a treatment than we. So we ask you to please step up. This is the time. We're all humans because it will come to you. If it's coming to us now, I promise you, one day it will reach you if it hasn't already.
Yep. And Allison, you have your hand up?
I do. As I said in the chat, a middle-aged white lady, I know the power that my privilege gives me, and I know that ICE is going to hesitate for even half a second more before doing something. And that could mean a difference between life and death for somebody else. I mean, if we can even make them pause, make them think, then it's absolutely worth it. I was there on Mother's Day when we all organized and we walked across the street. They didn't know what to do. They were shocked. And when they're met with something that they're not expecting, that's when we can get the upper hand. That's when we show them we're not backing down. And we as white people, I'm sorry, we need to be on the front lines. We don't need to be there taking the credit. We don't need to be there taking the glory. We need to be there protecting the organizers, protecting the people who are Black and brown, who are coming out. We need to do there. We need to go there. We need to stand there, and we need to stand up for these people, because as I think it was Asma that was just saying, everybody's rights are on the line here. If it's not now, it will be tomorrow. Stand up. You have to come out. This is the front lines of the fight. And sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, I think that's the perfect place to end it. I'm sure we could go on, but we want to be mindful of people's time. So to close us out, I'd like to call Will Henkel, who's one of our members from Pax Christi, New Jersey.
He's not. I can't find him on the.
Oh no, I have him. He's under Lorna Henkel.
Oh, great, great. Here we go.
And Will is going to close us out with a prayer.
Okay, I am one of the nice old white men. I spent some hours down at Delaney Hall these couple of weeks, and by God's grace and chance, I was there when the Congress men and women and the mayor were rushed and surrounded. Can I hear you? And it was a moment that touched my psyche, as few other things have over the many years that I've witnessed for different causes, going back to Vietnam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Lorna wasn't sure. So I think that in addition to saying what that moment meant to me, just going down there at any time, is so difficult because of the place where Delaney Hall is located. It hasn't been talked about much tonight, but it's Chemical Alley, they call it, and there are a lot of garbage trucks going by, smell from the sewage treatment plant just below. And it's a hard to think that people are living in such a difficult place. We were handed masks one day because the smell was so strong. It was just very hard to tolerate, and it's often. So pray for those who are in that situation 24/7. But as I stand there in that place, I'm reminded of the cloud of witnesses that surround us from years past. And I would like to share with you in closing a prayer from one of those, Thomas Merton. I don't know what the occasion was, but we can hear some of his despair and his hope and his faith that applies to us, I think, tonight and as we go forward. So I share these words from him. Oh Lord God, we have no idea where we are going. We do not see the road ahead of us. We cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do we really know ourselves. And the fact that we think that we are following your will does not mean that we are actually doing so. But we believe that the desire to please you does, in fact, please you. And we hope we have that desire in all that we are doing. We hope that we will never do anything apart from that desire. And we know that if we do this, you will lead us by the right road, though we may know nothing about it. Therefore, we will trust you always, though we may seem to be lost in the shadow of death. We will not fear, for you are ever with us, and you will never leave us to face our future alone. And these words from an old and beloved hymn, God of grace, God of glory, on we, your people, pour your power. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour, for the facing of this hour. Sisters and brothers, go now in the peace and the hope and the power that God grants to God's people to serve God's beloved near and wide. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Will. And thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I know we ran a little bit over, but I really appreciate everyone's time and your passion. And hopefully, we're going to see you out there, and our paths will cross, and we will bend this arc towards justice.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. We're going to turn the recording off and close our meeting tonight.
Thank